Released by Video Systems as a cutesy spin-off to their F1 Grand Prix series, SD F1 Grand Prix is the perfect game to round out this three-part series. Whereas Battle Racers and Riders Spirit took some liberties and were different enough from Mario Kart, SD F1 Grand Prix bites the bullet and goes for an exact copy, which is certainly less creative, but flawlessly nails the tone and feel of Mario Kart in almost every way. Even though I just dubbed it an exact copy, the controls are quite different for this game. Usually this would be a sin, but the handling in this game feels fantastic, as do the layout of the controls. For example, your steering is way looser, so you aren't constantly relying on the drift to make it around every sharp turn, which is far easier on newcomers and won't be hated by veterans of the genre since you still have a dedicated drift button, which is L. Another improvement is that your weapons are now mapped to the R button, which is easily accessible with your finger on the gas, so no more having to awkwardly maneuver your thumb to the X button like in Riders Spirit. Of course, what matters here is the racing, which is top quality like you'd expect from a ripoff of this caliber. The variety of courses at your disposal aren't all that inventive, as some are pretty much carbon copies of Mario Kart tracks right down to the ice and beach levels, but I do have to say they're just as enjoyable. Courses are fashioned with fun and challenge in mind, as there's no shortage of tight corners to whip around, pits to avoid, and boost pads to launch you into the next part of the course. And honestly, not all tracks borrow from Mario Kart, as there's plenty of new sights to see. This is F1 we're talking about, so tracks don't stay local. Instead, you get to race around the world. You get to outrun competitors in the serious moonlight of New York, zip across the top of the Great Wall of China, take first place in the deserts of Africa, and even burn rubber in the volcanoes of hell. Not to mention, they look great and are full of jovial colors for bright-eyed appeal. And on top of that, I think the graphics are slightly better than Mario Kart's. It really shows in levels like New York, where the track and background look stunning with the purple and gold palette. Even levels that borrow a lot from Mario Kart have little flourishes that set them apart enough to warrant some extra attention, like the Aurora Borealis in the ice levels, and the clouds that cheer you on by spelling GO on some circuits. And I can't talk about this game without mentioning the weapons. Once again, things will seem familiar as missiles act like shells. These things are the banana equivalent, and there's even an invincibility star. But some welcome additions come in the form of bombs and the awesome Time Stopper, which freezes all opponents for a few seconds and is perfect when in desperate need of a better position. But there's a twist here. The weapon boxes aren't random this time around. Instead, they are placed all over the tracks, and the better weapons like the Star and Time Stopper are usually in riskier areas. While this might be a Mario Kart clone, much like the others, this game has its own little quirks that set it apart. The most fascinating one being that they actually licensed a few real F1 drivers to be characters in the game. The dog being Mika Hakkinen, the crow being Damon Hill, and the wolf being Michael Schumacher. What's even cooler is if you head over to the Grand Prix mode, you get to race on 16 courses that are inspired by real F1 tracks across the world. This mode is a little more faithful to the real F1 experience, as there are no weapons and you even have to race a qualifying lap. So if you're an actual F1 fan, this game definitely has something for you. And as someone who isn't into it, I still had a blast racing through these tracks, and as a matter of fact, I ended up racing through all of them without realizing it. Another interesting feature is the ability to upgrade your car between races. Depending on where you place in the race, you'll earn money which you can spend at Chun-Li's shop to upgrade the weight of your car, the speed, the handling, and more. So if your character isn't the best in a certain category, just use your earnings to fix that. One last addition is your speed boost. All over the track you'll find these things which will fill up your bar in the top corner. Once full, you can press A to kick it into high gear for a short time. This gives you the opportunity to catch up if needed, and to cut corners or to ride over rough patches with no speed loss. I can't tell you how many times this has saved a race by giving me the extra speed to just edge out another racer coming down the home stretch. While this game is great, it isn't perfect. One big downside is the music. Not that it's bad, but that there is none. at least not during races. Instead, we get repetitive commentators. While the voice samples sound pretty good, I would have much preferred some music. Some songs do show up in time attack mode, during qualifying laps in Grand Prix mode, and of course in menus and results screens, and what's there is exactly what is needed during actual races. But in the end, that's not what we got. Outside of that small gripe, I really can't think of any others except that there's no battle mode like Mario Kart and Battle Racers. Except there totally is, but here it's called Dogfight. I don't know what it is with these racing game results screens, but much like Battle Racers, the music here sounds familiar. Comfortable controls, beautiful Mode 7, 3 modes of play and over 30 wondrous courses to compete in. SD F-1 Grand Prix easily proves that out of the 3 games I've looked at, it takes the gold. Not to mention it gives you the most bang for your buck. Speaking of which, this isn't the easiest game to track down, and when you do, it usually commands a bit of money. A loose cart will set you back about $35 to $40, which is kind of steep, but I think it's worth it. I can't say the same for a boxed copy, which is ridiculously overpriced in the $300 range. I blame the high price tag on the late release date of October of '95, which is less than a year before the N64's arrival. If an alternative to Mario Kart on the Super NES is what you're after, then you might as well get the best one and look no further than SD F-1 Grand Prix.